Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Robin Pacey, and I'm the Strategic Account Manager for Aeroseal's Commercial Division. Hopefully, most of you are familiar with Aeroseal, but for those who aren't, Aeroseal is a revolutionary process that seals leaky ductwork from the inside. The process can help your project meet duct tightness requirements, improve indoor air quality and building comfort, and avoid the costs of replacing ducts. Today, we have the pleasure of talking with Fred Lee, who's the Senior VP at Bayview Asset Management. Fred has years of experience in the clean tech and real estate finance industries, and will explain what PACE funding is and how it can help your building owners fund energy efficiency projects like Aeroseal. Before I turn the presentation over to Fred, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. First, please be sure to mute your lines so we can keep the background noise to a minimum. If you have a question during the presentation, please use the question button on your toolbar to ask them. I'll relay the questions to Fred, who will answer them either during the presentation or at the end during our Q&A session. And with that, I will turn things over to Fred.
Great, thanks, Robin. Hello, everyone. Fred Lee, I'm with Bayview Asset Management. I'm going to do a high-level overview of commercial PACE. My assumption here is that most of you are not familiar with CPACE or have very little familiarity with it. So that's the going assumption. But again, if you have questions, as Robin indicated, please feel free to ask, and I'll try to answer them either during the presentation or afterwards. So with that, get started. So my firm is Bayview Asset Management. We're a 2,000 employee firm with a mortgage origination business, investment management business, a mortgage servicing business, and research capabilities that support those business lines. And I'm on the Bayview PACE team. That's us, which started in the spring of last year. That's when we launched the platform to really support or be a part of the mortgage origination business. So we're spread out all over the country. I'm based in New York City, but the team, as I said, is all over the place. So the head of the team, Ann Hills, is based in St. Louis. Jason is in San Diego, Woolsey's in Oregon, Danny Roberts is in Atlanta, and then Julie is in Fort Worth, Texas. So really all over the country. But the primary sort of staffing and the organization really is mostly in the Miami area in Coral Gables. So I'll just jump right into it. What is PACE? So CPACE stands for Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy, and it's a state legislated program that allows commercial property owners to finance improvements by placing an assessment on their property. So it really has its underpinnings from existing kind of financing infrastructure. Municipal bond financing is really kind of the basis for it. Taking in private investors or lenders to fund public projects like schools and roads, but here it's really to in the public interest to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and the carbon footprint of the built environment. And so that's really kind of where PACE got its start. It's based on two simple provisions. It's secured as a parcel assessment and then billed and paid through your property taxes. So you have sort of a security interest in the building, and then you as a lender are getting repaid through your property taxes. So PACE has really taken off in sort of popularity. Legislation is passed in 37 states in Washington, D.C., and there are 45 active PACE programs nationwide. And a lot of that has happened in the last few years. And in jurisdictions where it doesn't exist, there's definitely movement to create PACE programs in various states where it doesn't exist yet. So how does PACE work, kind of step by step? As I said, the state approves the legislation, it passes a state law, then the county or the city opts in or passes a local law, based on the state program parameters. And then lenders like Bayview become qualified within a program. So the program has been set up by the municipality. And then we look for transactions. And so we work, either with property owners directly or with brokers or, with contractors. And then we'll look at the project, we'll underwrite it, we'll get the approval from the program that the project qualifies, and then we'll fund the transaction. And then once that happens, the county collector will add that line item to the property tax bill and collect the PACE payments on behalf of the lender and pass them through to the lender, just as it collects property taxes, in the regular course of business. So here's kind of a diagram showing, how this works visually. If you look on the right-hand side, you have the partners to a building owner, contractors, MEP firms, architects, engineers, designing and putting together a project. Once you have that, then the owner has to look for financing. We'll turn to a PACE provider like Bayview. We'll look at the project, we'll underwrite it, and then another important step is going to a mortgage lender to get approval from an existing mortgage lender. And this is an important step, and I'll get into a little more in later slides, but every program requires mortgage lender consent, and that's primarily because the lien priority of an unpaid PACE charge actually supersedes the priority of a mortgage lender's lien. So just like property taxes, a city will collect and enforce. If you don't pay your property taxes, the city can foreclose on your property to make good on those unpaid property taxes. Same thing goes for a PACE charge. And that has priority over a mortgage lender. So if the city were to foreclose on a building, the PACE lender would get paid before the mortgage lender. And there's nuances to that sort of process, important points to be made, but I'll get to that in a few minutes. And then finally, once you have the consent and you have the project put together and the proceeds lined up, then you're engaging with the program administrator who will approve the project that's being financed, and then record the assessment and then start that billing process. So it's on bill again on your property, on the building owner's property tax bill. And that's how the collection happens, and that's how the lender ultimately gets paid. So how does the funding work? The loan is underwritten and approved by a lender. The lender works with the program administrator to ensure that the work being financed is eligible for PACE. Not everything is eligible. For PACE, energy efficiency improvements are always going to be eligible, as are sort of renewable energy or clean energy improvements. But there are programs that allow for other types of improvements, resiliency measures, water conservation, water quality, seismic improvements. So depending on the program, there are other elements that can be financed with PACE. So the steps are: the assessment is recorded, the municipality issues a bond or can assign the assessment to the PACE capital provider. Some states require bonding, others do not. We're repaid by the annual assessment installment levied on the property. So again, I'm sort of repeating things, but I think it's helpful to hear them a couple times. The property tax bill is the mechanism by which we're repaid. And then the PACE funds are held either in trust by the bond trustee if it's a bond issuance, or by the bank, by a bank, and then drawn down just like construction loan draws are made in a typical construction financing. So what are eligible expenses? Anything affixed to the property that impacts energy or water use, if water conservation measures are allowable, HVAC, electrical, envelope, elevators, plumbing, anything that will contribute to energy efficiency in a building, renewable energy, and resiliency. Again, not all programs for resiliency, but many: earthquake, fire, hurricane, flood. Soft costs, indirect costs, and financing costs can also be includable as expenses. And then, the standard is it's not LEED. It's typically building code or slightly better will qualify. as long as it's contributing to energy efficiency. And then some highlighted benefits on the left-hand side. This is relatively low-cost financing. The amortization periods are long, up to 30 years, typically 25 to 30 years. It's non-recourse to the owner. You're repaying through property taxes. It's a really simple process. It runs with the property. So if a building owner wants to sell their building, then the obligation to repay the PACE stays with the successor building owner. So you don't, once you sell your building, it's really kind of the obligation of whoever buys the building from you. We're generally allowing for, greater than 25% loan to value of the building. So you can finance a great deal of, projects relative to the value of your building. And then it's capitalized interest through construction followed by an interest-only period. So you as an owner are really not going out of pocket when you're doing kind of the improvements or the construction. And then even afterwards, we're charging interest only for the first few years, up to 10 years, just so you can sort of accrue some of the benefits of the improvements. And then as you see those benefits and some of the savings, and you've built up some of that, the ability to repay the PACE charge. Again, what can be financed? Here's a little more detailed list. Energy efficiency, so air sealing and ventilation certainly qualify. Insulation, HVAC systems, lighting, envelope, water heating, anything that will improve the energy efficiency of a building. Water conservation in some jurisdictions. Renewable energy, solar, wind, fuel cell, cogen, really in all PACE programs. Again, soft costs, permits, plans, M&V, and then in California in particular, seismic improvements are eligible. So getting back to this point of why mortgage lenders would be comfortable with PACE, I think it worth kind of spending a little more time on that, because it probably is the biggest challenge to getting PACE financing. And not every lender will approve it, but many do. And why would they? So I think I made the point, but when you're enforcing on an unpaid PACE charge, you're only enforcing on that unpaid PACE charge, meaning if you have a 30-year PACE financing and in year 2, the building owner doesn't pay the year 2 charges, then only the year 2 charges are what are lienable and what can be foreclosed on. Anything that's owed in the future does not become due just because you haven't paid in year 2. So it's a relatively small exposure to the lender. And so there's limited risk. Only unpaid levy property tax payments are senior to a mortgage and foreclosure. Meanwhile, you're adding a lot of value to the building, right? These efficiency measures, renewable measures, even resiliency measures will add real value. You're reducing your costs, and so improving the net operating income of your building. And so you're improving the collateral value of a building. And so that's important to a lender, and they recognize that. Another point is structuring, and I talked about this, your capitalized interest. So you're basically allowing a borrower to borrow the interest payments in the first couple of years, so they don't have to go out of pocket. There's going to be a reserve that's funded and paid out of the proceeds to pay for interest during the construction period, and then it's interest only for a period after that. So you're only paying interest, and then it starts amortizing kind of in the out years. So you're sort of building up to this point of where you're actually having to go out of pocket for the full amortized amount. And then a lot of times this is a relationship-based discussion. If the bank and the building owner or property owner have a good relationship and the bank wants to preserve that, then they will, they'll work with the borrower to make the PACE financing happen. Just a quick plug for Bayview. So some of our competitive advantages and differences from our competitors. We offer very competitive and flexible structuring options. Unlike a lot of lenders, all of our capital is from our own balance sheet. Other lenders will rely on third-party financing providers to fund deals, and so they're kind of restricted in what they can do. We're very flexible in our structuring. Like I said, we offer 3 years of capitalized interest and long IO periods and high LTVs. We offer also comprehensive capital solutions. So a lot of times building owners are looking for, and this is, primarily in new construction context, but a lot of times lenders are looking for a full capital stack solution, not working with several lenders. And Bayview actually has other products that it can offer alongside of PACE, including mezzanine financing, bridge financing, and even construction financing in some circumstances, so that a building owner only has to work with one lender versus multiple lenders. We offer certainty of execution. We have a team of 50 plus commercial real estate professionals who do financings all day long, originations, underwriting, due diligence, legal, and closing. Very experienced. We have a reputation for getting deals done, and our leadership has a combined track record of $500 million of PACE transactions. In our first year, we did over 100 million and expect to do 300 million this year. So a lot of deal flow, a lot of experience. And then turnkey engineering capabilities. This really only applies to New York City. I'm not sure how many of you are based in New York City, but we do have a program where we will do an evaluation of a building and sort of evaluate local law 97 exposure. And local law 97 is a requirement that buildings reduce their greenhouse gas emissions or face fines if they don't. So we have this partner firm that we work with that will sort of give an assessment of what your local law 97 exposure is based on current building conditions, and then what you might be able to do to meet those local law 97 requirements, and then what the utility savings would be if you did those measures. Common CPACE use cases. I'll just run through these quickly. Renovations to existing buildings. I think that's probably most applicable to this group. Cost-effective solutions for distressed buildings. So you can actually use, in many cases, not every program, but most programs, PACE retroactively. So if a building has already done an improvement, energy efficiency project, if it's happened within the last 2 or 3 years, then it actually can be financed retroactively. So it's, it allows for a building owner to actually get some cash to cash out any financing that they might have taken on to do those improvements, and they can use that however they want to. Improve economics for new construction, and then I mentioned building mandates like New York, the Climate Mobilization Act and Local Law 97, and that's an area where we're seeing, I think, there's a lot of opportunity for, kind of this retrofit discussion, particularly in New York with Local Law 97, but also in other jurisdictions like Boston and Washington, D.C., St. Louis, and I know other jurisdictions are coming online with mandates to require, greenhouse gas emission reductions in their buildings. And I think that's a trend that is going to continue as we go on, and you're going to see a lot more cities adopting requirements like Local Law 97. I'm going to stop there. I have a couple of case studies, and happy to share this presentation with others, but or with this group. But I don't know that it's so helpful to sort of walk through these. It's really focused on kind of the financing aspects of the projects, and not so much, I think, what this group is interested in. So again, I'll make this available to the group, but happy to take any questions at this point to the extent anyone has any.
But we did have one question come in.
Okay.
Does the obligation to pay for new owners stay with the property tax payment from prior owner with no changes?
That's correct. Yeah. So really, it's it's almost like it's scheduled. They have many programs will have just like a schedule of payments that are due over a period of years, right? And then it just says it's going to go on the property tax bill. So regardless of who owns it, it's just going to go to the building owner. So if you sell your building and then a new building owner comes on, they'll get that property tax bill. You can prepay the PACE loan. So, for whatever reason, if, you want to do that, so there's no requirement that it stays on the building for 30 years as long as someone prepays the loan. But that's what will happen in a circumstance where there is no prepayment.
Are there any prepayment penalties or anything like that?
Yeah, it really depends on kind of that's really a negotiation. So we have very strict prepayment penalties to very permissive prepayment penalties, really depending on what the circumstances are of the building owner. If they know that they're going to be selling the building or refinancing within a given period of time, we'll have, like, let's say it's a 5% prepayment penalty during that period where they know they're going to own it, and then in year 6 that goes down to 1% or 0%. We'll structure it flexibly. It's just a matter of what the financing is then going to cost. What's your rate going to be? The more flexibility that you want built in with prepayment penalties, the more expensive the financing will be. But like I said, typically the financing costs are between 5 and 6%, but really we've seen mostly kind of low 5s to start, and sort of that will vary depending again on kind of prepayment flexibility.
If anyone else has questions, feel free to put something into the chat, or even unmute yourself and go ahead and ask. We did have one other question just come through. Will this have any impact on a potential property owner income tax credit?
No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't really affect your income tax situation. Well, what I guess is the question: will you get greater credit because you have a higher income tax bill? I don't know if
Sharon, if you want to unmute yourself and clarify, that would be great.
I mean, so the property tax, sort of the tax treatment of the PACE charge, really, that's something that we recommend everyone sort of talk to their accountant and to their lawyers to sort of make a determination on how they want to deal with the PACE charge on their property tax bill. So I don't like to sort of comment further than that. Unless you can, if you want to specify more of the question, but that's what I'll just kind of say, knowing nothing else.
Sharon, I apologize. I tried to unmute you, but the system is not being cooperative. So we can take that offline if you would like to clarify that any further.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
There, I can, yes.
Yes.
The question, so like in the instance of a solar tax credit, I can get a credit as a building owner for installing solar. Does the financing through PACE, through the property tax, have any impact on my tax credit that I would be getting for installation of solar or whatever?
No, it really doesn't, and it shouldn't, and it doesn't affect, at least with the programs that I'm familiar with, any other sort of subsidy. They're really sort of meant to be additive. It's not meant to be sort of something that will replace another sort of subsidy or a credit. So it plays nicely with other incentive programs and subsidies.
Any other questions? And Fred, maybe I'll interject here. If people are interested in this for their local area, where is the best place to start?
Feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to sort of, and you can go to our website, bayviewpace.com, and there's a map showing where there are active programs. I don't know where people are situated, but like I said, many states have programs, but not all states do. and some are coming online but aren't available yet. You know, Tennessee will be like for example, is one that's very close but not there yet, but should be this summer. So, and New Jersey is the same. So there are programs that don't have PACE. There are states that don't have PACE programs yet, but they are coming in the ones that are not. So even if you're in a geography that doesn't have a PACE program yet, it may be that it's coming soon.
Great. All right. If we don't, oh, any other questions? Okay, and there's a link in the chat to Bayview's website, so take note of that if you are interested. And feel free to reach out if there are any other questions you think of after the fact. We would be happy to talk about that with you.
Yes, please. And I don't know if you shared my contact information with everyone. I thought I had put it into the deck, but it's just our generic contact info@bayviewpace.com. But I'm at fredlee@bayviewpace.com. If anyone wants to shoot me an email, I'm happy to answer any questions or follow-ups and you know, talk about PACE.
Fred, we greatly appreciate your time today. And if anybody has any other questions, let us know. Otherwise, thanks for your time.
Great. Thank you.